officer to pull me over. Mommy, I do not want my tail lights to be out. I want my car to be working perfectly because I do not want to be pulled over. So he never wanted to get into any infraction with the law.
Switching gears, let me ask you, what message do you think the guilty verdict sent not just to police in Dallas, but to law enforcement across America? And everyone watched this trial so closely because it's so rare, first of all, for an officer to be indicted. So what message do you think the guilty verdict sent across the country?
Well, I hope the guilty verdict told officers that they are accountable for their actions. I think that's what came out, the whole issue of accountability, and that police officers couldn't just go shooting people and get away with it. I hoped that was the message. However, when I heard 2 weeks after that verdict that a Tatiana Jefferson was shot in her own bedroom,
Yes.
I don't think that message went out. Because for another police officer, to have done almost the exact thing.
The parallels were undeniable.
Undeniable.
She's in her home.
In her home, playing video games with her 8-year-old nephew.
Yes. Minding her own business.
Minding her own business, and she gets shot right in her own bedroom. That, for me, says that the message did not go to everyone. Now, it's not to say that I believe that every cop is a bad cop. I think we have good cops. We have police officers who are dedicated to their jobs and who go out to protect and serve. But I believe there are bad cops. There are those who abuse power. And no matter what message is sent by a number of these verdicts, there are some cops who would never hear that message. And that's why, after the trial, I said that the Dallas Police Department needs to clean up. Because what we saw coming out of the trial, not only did Amber commit a crime, but we had several other officers aiding and abetting.
That's right.
And helping her to cover up. And we realized from what happened the same night of the murder, body cameras went off, dash cams went off, text messages were deleted. Had we not stood up, and I want to thank everyone who stood up with us, had we not stood up, they would have criminalized him.
Yes.
And they would have let that case just go under the carpet.
Yes.
But I believe because we stood up and because Botham himself had such an impeccable record, they couldn't find anything on him.
This was very controversial that a lot of activists were happy with the guilty verdict, unhappy with the 10-year sentence that was assessed as her punishment. Were you satisfied with the 10-year penalty?
There's something in economics called satisficing and not satisficing or something like that. I wouldn't say that I'm satisfied with the 10-year sentence, but I am not dissatisfied. Let me explain. On the Tuesday afternoon, when I heard that verdict, that Amber Geiger was guilty of murder, that did it for me. I felt that I got justice. One of my attorneys came to me and he said, "So, Miss Allison, what sentence are you looking for?" I said to him, "The truth is, I don't even know. I didn't put a number in my head because all I prayed for was for a guilty verdict." So at one point we were talking, and he said to me, "What do you think about 25 years?" I said, "Well, 25 years is good. It's okay."
Because she faced up to life.
Yeah, she faced up to life, but 25 years, it just didn't matter to me. So when I heard 10 years, what came to my mind is, look, you're going to get 10 years of reflection of what you did to my son. So whether it was 1 year or 99 years, it doesn't bring Botham back. That's fact number one. Number two, if she got 1 year and she's out tomorrow, it doesn't affect me. Folks, it affects you. It affects another, whether she would be back as another menace to the Dallas society. Yeah? So for me, it doesn't matter. But what consoles me, however, is that she is 10 years in solitary confinement.
Protected.
Well protected for her own good, but on the other hand, she is in a cell for 23 out of 24 hours. Could you imagine what that means to someone who was free, who walked around with her gun and her taser and her pepper spray and everything? To me, that's punishment in itself. So it really, the 10 years didn't matter.
A 6x8 cell. Administrative segregation is what you describe. She cannot have any contact with other human beings in general population. And it is more for her than it is for them.
That's right.
Because they're protecting her. Let me ask you, how does it make you feel to know that the defense has so quickly decided it will appeal the decisions made? And when someone has been shown the spectacular amount of mercy that this defendant was, who claims to want to take accountability and she's sorry and I wished it were me and all of that, to go along with that appeal. What does that say?
Well, the way I see it is there is a notice of appeal. There isn't an appeal filed yet, at least not to my knowledge.
They say they will, yes.
Yeah, so there's a notice of appeal, which shows that there's an intention to. I'm looking forward to the grounds of appeal. Let me see where. Because I believe if she really appeals, then there's a possibility that those who believe she didn't get the right sentence will now get satisfied that she will get a longer sentence than 10 years. Because, and the other reason I didn't really feel bad about the 10-year sentence is because it was done by a jury. And I respect the decision of a jury. For a jury of that composition to have come out with a guilty verdict, I think was tremendous. And therefore, for that same, I wouldn't be able to rejoice over the guilty verdict and condemn the same jury for the 10 years. So I respect the decision of the jury, and I believe if she's put before a different jury, she may get more, because I don't see the grounds. All the facts of the criminal case, all the facts in the trial have to be turned over into a new appeal. But the main fact is she intended to kill. So I don't see how the verdict could be any different.
That's right. Let's go back to the very first question I asked you when we sat down. But before I ask it, during the penalty phase, you said you weren't eating properly, you're not sleeping a lot, and that the heartbreak over this tremendous loss, you just had a lot of feelings all merged together, and it affects and impacts our health, believe it or not. Yeah. And the thing I want to share with you, I made some notes. There was a 3-year study of more than 100,000 Black participants, and we have some interesting data for you on trauma. Half of the participants in this study were women. Half lived in states where at least one killing of an unarmed person had occurred in the 90 days before they were polled. According to Boston University researchers who conducted this study, findings suggest that, quote, a mental health burden due to police killings is as nearly as large as burdens associated with other health issues like diabetes. And so it weighs on us, and it weighs on us, this sadness, this anger, this outrage, this depression that we feel, particularly when there is case after case after case after case of police shooting unarmed Black people or unarmed people, period. We feel it. So I want to let you know, when I looked at this study, which was published last year, if you want to look it up, it's in the medical journal Lancet. You should look at it. It's very interesting. And I said, it's not our imaginations. We're crying when we see this. We're angry. We're outraged because that weight and not sleeping and worrying about our children, worrying who's going to be next. Let's demonstrate. I want to prove, and I want the audience to participate with me on this. There are now simply catchwords and phrases that we say to each other and we hear in the media that we know so well that we can just say it. So when I say a word or a phrase, you tell me what I'm talking about. Skittles. Toy gun. Say it louder. Absolutely. Let's do a few more. Hands up, don't shoot. I will light you up. Sandra Bland. 16 shots. A little tougher. Who said that? Laquan McDonald. Shot 16 times by Chicago police. I think that one's a little tougher because Chicago police hid the evidence for a year.
That's right.
And so we're just now starting to get all the details on that case. I can't breathe.
Eric,
Vanilla ice cream. Allison Jean. Absolutely. Do you see how that weight and the health burdens that are associated with us knowing all of this information? So I'm going to ask you again. I know you don't have to answer, or you can hit me on the head with your mic. How are you? Because I would not be fine, and you're so fine. And you've said it to me, and you've said it in emails, and she said it a year ago, but let's just try to remember across Dallas and across the country to ask each other, how are you doing? How are you doing? How am I doing? So that we can protect and insulate. How much of a role does your faith play in the well-being, in being able to process and get up every day? How much of a role?
if I didn't have faith, I wouldn't be here. I have learned through all of this to trust in God. Before I could even open my eyes on a morning, I start to pray. I just continue to pray and to depend on God. There are times when I think that I need Him more, and in the weeks leading up to the trial, it so happened that one day my husband was preaching, and his lesson was on fasting. And we had never fasted before. We'd never practiced fasting. But after his lesson, I decided, no, Allison, you need more than prayer. So every Saturday leading up to the trial, I would fast. I would just stay on water and just pray. Every half hour, I had a prayer list, and every half hour, I would pray for something on my prayer list. I needed to prepare myself for the trial. So what keeps me going when people ask me, how are you so strong and what keeps you going? My faith in God keeps me going. And the second thing that keeps me going is I have the confidence, based on how Botham lived his life, that he is with the Father and we will see him.
We heard John Fullenwater speak a little bit about the statistics, and we know a lot of those by heart. Black people are 2.5 times more likely to be shot by police than whites. And so far this year, police have killed more than 750 people. Last year, the total was 1,100, so it was a little bit higher. Let me give you some Dallas numbers. From 2010 to 2014, Dallas recorded 34 deadly police shootings, which made us number 3 in the nation. Number 3. Of the 58 shootings by Dallas police from 2002 to 2013, more than half the victims were African Americans. Now do the math, we're not half the population. How are we more than half the victims? And that's what the protest is about. That's what education and awareness is all about. What would you like to see changed in the Dallas PD when you hear numbers like that?
Well, again, coming out of Amber Geiger's trial, we heard that the training which she received, she didn't put it into practice when she was confronted with that situation. So that tells me that she was not able to absorb the learning that was intended. So as a night job, I teach adults, and I've gone through some of the training for teaching adults. So what it says to me is perhaps the program is inadequate for students to absorb. So it could be that when they're talking about 8 hours of training in de-escalation techniques, perhaps she needs more. Police officers may need more than the 8 hours, because you are supposed to be trained so that when you're put in the situation, you would be able to apply your training. But if she was trained, one of the things that struck me, she was trained in April on de-escalation. By September, she didn't know how to do the de-escalation. Then she was trained to do CPR. And here is an opportunity for you to now practice CPR. She said she had never done it on a human being. But you had a human being right there. It was your opportunity to now apply the training, what you were taught, to this live situation. So I believe that the training, if your students are not absorbing your training, it could be one of two things. Your student is either not trainable or your program is inadequate. So I believe the Dallas Police Department needs to review the training that is given to Dallas police officers. That's number one. Now, let me backtrack, because I'm a human resource practitioner. And the first thing you do is ensure that the people that you've recruited are the right people for the job. Because after you train these people, if they were not right for the job, they will never be able to get the training properly. So they need to start from there. But in addition to that, the Dallas police chief has promised that there would be an internal investigation, first of all, about the leak of the 911 call. We have not heard the outcome of this. Then there's another internal investigation into all of the corruption that came out of the Amber Geiger's trial. I am looking and waiting with bated breath for the outcome of that investigation. So the Dallas Police Department, I think, should recognize that they are in the spotlight. The entire world is looking at Dallas. Ladies and gentlemen, on Tuesday, a team from Japan is going to be visiting St. Lucia to do a story on Botham. And they have been following this story from September 7th last year. You are in the spotlight. So it's not just about Dallas. It's not just about Texas. And it's not just about the United States. Many people are watching. So cleaning up Dallas's police department is not only going to benefit Dallas, it will benefit the whole world. There are so many parents who meet me and say, my son is studying in Canada, or my son is studying in England, or my daughter is studying in Florida, and I am so scared. That's the impact that Botham's case and many other cases have on other parents. So it's incumbent on the Dallas Police Department to do something about it.
I'm glad you brought up de-escalation because I didn't know this until I did a little bit more research. In more than 30 states, little to no training is done or even required in de-escalation techniques. 30 states. Even though most police are equipped with stun guns, mace, flashlight, alternatives, they can say, I don't need the training in more than 30 states. So I thought about that, and then I thought, would you be supportive of the Justice League of Texas or some other organization or individual submitting state or federal legislation with Botham's name attached? I first said to myself, the Botham Jean De-Escalation Act.
Absolutely.
That's just one.
Absolutely.
Because if it's federal, you just pointed out the whole world is watching Dallas, but it needs to saturate all over. When we have 30 states and you travel around, you're always hoping that you don't have to call 911 for anything, especially away from home. So those 30 states should be training, and it should be mandatory. The other thing I thought was the Botham Jean Anti-Bias Training Act. So I'm as futuristic, but I'm glad you said yes to that. New Jersey is the only state recently that I know of where the Attorney General has said all police departments must have 2 trainings before they go on the street: de-escalation and bias. Because we're not addressing our prejudices. And we're not saying all police are racist, all police are corrupt. That's not what this is. It's not an indictment against all police officers. By show of hands, how many people here have had to call 911 for help? Were you thinking, I just want to make sure I get a what? A good one. It's kind of sad that you actually have to say, I'm hoping that I get a good one and not the other kind. Let me ask if you could speak to the 18,000 police chiefs, knowing that Barack Obama as president had his Justice Department investigate 20 departments, and lately under this administration, we've had the Justice Department do nothing. Don't you think the Justice Department should be called in? In other words, can Dallas investigate itself? Or should it be allowed to?
I don't think that's possible. But I think what's even worse is, in Botham's case, the Dallas Police Department acknowledged that they should not be investigating their own. But they went to a worst agency.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I have very little regard for the Texas Rangers. And could you imagine, with Tatiana Jefferson's case, the Texas Rangers declined? I think that is a show of a lack of integrity. So there is a lot that needs to be done with these agencies in order that they could regain their credibility. So the Justice Department has to step in cases like this. And luckily for you, you are the United States.
Or the divided states right now.
So you could call on other states and you could call on other resources to assist. I think we have to recognize that especially out of what came out of Bofum's case, there is a crisis. And in addition to the laws that you may want to introduce, we heard following Bofum's death that Chief Rennie Hall was going to abandon the 24-hour cooling off period for police officers after police shootings. I don't know whether that has become policy. I don't know whether it just remained at the talk level, but these need to be put into some strong policy. Because we're seeing in a Tatiana Jefferson's case, the police officer was given the 72 hours. And going back to Amber's case, don't you realize what she did with her 72 hours? Delete text messages.
That's right.
Delete social media. Turn off body cams. Turn off dash cams. Text her lover to get drunk on that same weekend during that 72 hours. On the same day that I was sitting at Dallas West, planning Bofum's funeral, she was planning to get drunk with her same lover. So what do they do with the 72 hours? Is that all the cooling off that needs to be done? So in all her penitent and her emotional outburst and everything in court, here's what happened immediately following the murder of an innocent man. So I think there is need to look at these 72 hours and how it is done. We also need to look at what happens to the treatment of a police officer, an off-duty police officer, because they now want to it looked like everyone wants to take their hands off and put Amber Geiger as the only one responsible for that murder. But she was aided by so many of her peers. She was in full uniform and all of the others in uniform were patting her and, hugging her on the same night.
And turning off the car camera so that nothing, and I thought that was illegal, so that nothing could be heard that she is saying, making sure her union rep
That's right.
is there. And also, I was very insulted by the fact that the whole city was looking for Amber. The media is looking. She has time to move out of her place. She has time to leisurely walk into Kaufman County to surrender herself. Not in Dallas,
right.
Which if there's going to be justice and accountability, I feel like Dallas should have handled the charges, the arrest, and said, we got this, instead of giving the investigation over, as you said. And I like that you said, we can't legislate hearts. No matter how much policy we pass, how many laws, how many good practices we have on the books, we can't legislate hearts. I saw a statistic that I'm very bothered by, and I want to ask you about. Let's talk about the criminalization of black people, particularly black men. I have 5 brothers, 2 sons, was married a long time, and I have a lot of black men friends, and I'm always worried about them. I grew up worrying about them. 66% of Americans, white Americans, who participated in an Associated Press poll said that a good or excellent way to describe black people was violent. Okay, 66%. Let that marinate, because that's 2/3 of the country if you take a sampling. So if you think I'm violent before I do anything, that explains your reaction to me in the criminalization process. So we may not be able to change that with a law or a policy but how do we reach our fellow man, or should we even be trying? It feels like 66%, you already think I'm violent and I haven't stepped outside?
Well, Botham was, that's one of the things Botham always spoke to me about. I didn't know it because we live in St. Lucia. We're predominantly black. St. Lucia is, our main economy is tourism. We depend on tourism, and most of the tourists who come are white. So I would say, I don't know that we have racism in St. Lucia. We've not been exposed to it. I've never been exposed to a situation where I am told that I'm black, or I'm told that I shouldn't be in a certain place. So we were not exposed to that. But when I questioned him, he said to me one time, "Mommy, I know what it is to be in an elevator and this little white lady pulls her bag." And I felt so bad. I said, you actually witnessed this? You've experienced that? He said, yes, all the time. And that's one of the reasons he went out of his way to make sure that he was always impeccably dressed. I thought it was an excuse because I used to joke him about all these designer clothes that he wore, and he always, I used to tell him, "You're so full of yourself." But he was deliberate and he said to me, "Mommy, I do not want anyone to think that I'm a vagabond. I don't want to be profiled." But regardless of how you're dressed, I believe, just the color of our skin is the greatest threat. And that's sad. And I believe that starting from the church, there's a lot of work to do to mend, to start these difficult conversations on racial unity. We must seek to bring this together. We must break that divide because it's not getting better, it's getting worse.
It is getting worse, and there's a timeline of 4 years to present. Last Sunday, I wrote a column not about this, but about the fact that hate speech and hate crimes in America have been on the rise for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
You can do the timeline to exactly when that started.
Yeah.
I don't have to say the name because I'm not going to say the name. But I am going to tell you that it's tracked along the same trajectory. But I just want to say that you started talking about Botham just now and the way he dressed. Tell us, before we begin to wrap up, more about the caliber of the man you and your husband raised. Tell us, what else would you like for the world to know about Botham Jean?
When I sat here, when the choir sang, I had to hold myself because one thing I thought was, I wished he was here. These are the kinds of fora Botham enjoyed. He loved that kind of setting where you could discuss difficult issues. Botham was a very bright child. I'll just tell you a little story. At home, we have, at age 11, all students have to sit a competitive exam to go into high school. I sat at that exam, but I never remember studying for an exam like that. At 11 years, nobody studied. But when it was Botham, I was shocked when I saw this child taking a book and studying for that exam. I'm not a parent who puts pressure on kids to study so I didn't put any pressure. But he purposely studied for an exam. And he ranked 23rd on the island in that year. I think it was out of about 5,000 students, and he was 23rd on the island. But Botham was never a child who went out and bragged about what he did. I found that he was an old man in a young man's skin. That's how I could describe him. Because the kinds of initiatives that he took of visiting the sick, he loved the elderly. When I came to Dallas West for the first time, the amount of elderly ladies I saw hugging him, I said, you know, he just gravitated to elderly people. And this one was saying, this is my husband, and this one is my, and they were all over him. When he brought the Harding team to St. Lucia, I said to him, okay, so what are y'all going to do? Y'all go and evangelize? He said, Mommy, we're not going to go and evangelize in the way that you know. And he was so bold. He said to me, Mommy, the way y'all evangelize is y'all go to people and y'all say, repent and be baptized. That's not what we're going to do. He said, we are going to minister to people. And he always reminded me that in the book of Matthew, where it says, I was sick and you visited me. I was hungry, you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me to drink. He said, for as much as you do these to the least of my brothers, you do it unto me. And he also used the passage that I don't remember it right now, but he used several passages to show me that it's not only about repent and be baptized, but it's about doing good to the people around you. So when he visited the delinquent boys, he would come back home and say, Mommy, all these boys need is someone who cares. He would go to the orphanage and he would come back and tell me about the young children that he see without parents. And if I had more time on my hands, both of them would have had me adopting several children. So that's the uniqueness of Botham. He was self-driven, and he found time for everything and everyone. I kept saying to Botham, when are you bringing a wife? And we had that conversation just a few weeks before. I said, settle down with one girlfriend. I am ready to throw you the wedding. The wedding is on me. But I was just looking forward to him coming with someone he would say, this is the woman that I want to marry. And there were so many girls who called me and said, I love your son, but when I call, he's not answering the phone. And I understood why he couldn't settle down. Because he wanted to have time for everybody. He wanted time for work, time for church, time to minister outside, time for sports. And every single person who knew Botham says he was their best friend. So he wanted time for everyone. He could not commit to spending time with just one. So that's the uniqueness of of Botham. That's the uniqueness of a man. And in his 26 years, he's done much more than I have done as his mom. He's done a lot. And up to now, everywhere I go, I meet people who tell me, I knew your son. He came to visit me at the hospital. I knew your son. He helped me. He used to mentor me. I knew your son. I had him speak to my son when he was going the wrong way. And people, so while they tried to criminalize Botham last year, I was still waiting to hear someone say what bad things Botham did in his lifetime. And I haven't heard anyone. So it's not just about a mother boasting of her son, but I think the testimonies that I've gotten from people here in Dallas, in Arkansas, I get text messages from people in Florida, in Atlanta, in London, in St. Lucia, all over the world, of people who say the impact that Botham had on their lives.
This is the final question. And so his legacy lives on in the Botham Jean Foundation. Talk to us about how we can get in touch. Give us the website for those people that are taking mental notes. And tell us a little bit about the foundation, like whether you will do more red galas, which was phenomenal.
Yes. Well, because of the life that Botham lived, it was very easy for us to come up with the Botham Jean Foundation. So our motto for the foundation is promoting Christian intervention for social change. The objectives of the foundation are, first of all, to advocate on issues of racial unity, gun control, and police brutality. These are the three major issues that I think need to be addressed so that there wouldn't be many other repetitions of Botham's situation. But in addition to that, we're going to be continuing the work that Botham started by reaching out to these underserved and underprivileged institutions and people. So in St. Lucia, we've identified the very institutions that he reached out to: the St. Lucia Boys Training Center, that's a center for delinquent boys; the New Beginning Transit Home, which is an orphanage for kids; the Comfort Bay, and the Marion Home Senior Citizens Home. So these we've singled out to assist. The schools that he attended: his elementary school, his preschool, his high school, and community college, and all of these. We've also been able to get assistance from PwC and Harding University to have scholarships in Botham's name, and PwC awarded 4 scholarships. So there are 4 people at Harding right now who have scholarships in Botham's name. So we're hoping also through the foundation to provide support to the local congregations of the Churches of Christ, and to also promote a cappella singing, because that's what Botham was noted for, his lovely voice. So these are some of the things that we are going to do in the foundation. We've also been able to team up with a foundation called Anidaso, and they have built a water well in Ghana, Africa, and it's in Botham's name. His name is inscribed on the well, and this was the first mechanized well that was able to bring clean water to a community in Africa. So we're hoping to team up with them to do some other initiatives. One could be bringing in water toilets to the community, because some of the things that we take for granted, there are places in the world that still are out of things like water toilets. Assisting schools and some of the other institutions in Africa as well as places in Dallas. We're trying to see if we could get to do a toy drive at the homeless shelter in Dallas, and if we could give hampers for Christmas. So some of these initiatives we are really going forward with. So the foundation was launched officially in Dallas on September 29th of this year, which is Bofum's birthday. So we had a wonderful red tie gala at the Renaissance Hotel, and we were very pleased with the program and the number of people who were there. I see Ed sitting here, and it was really a wonderful experience. So we're hoping to make that an annual affair. It's a fundraiser, and out of the funds that we collect, we reach out to these institutions and the different people. None of the money goes to us. It goes to the foundation. Brother Barry here is the treasurer, and we are very meticulous in ensuring that the funds are well accounted for and used for the purpose for which it's done. So for persons who are interested in donating to the Bofum Jean Foundation, you could do so on the website. The address is www.bothumjeanfoundation.org. So there you would see all of the work that we've already done. In St. Lucia, we've given 2 scholarships to students of Bofum's elementary school. These were 2 underprivileged students, and we've given them all of their school supplies in order that they could go through the year without having to worry about their education. And we've also provided them with meals for the entire year, and they're supposed to also be getting extra lessons, extra assistance in order to bring them back up to the level that they ought to be. So that's what we've been doing. And I must tell you that dedicating my energy towards the Bofum Jean Foundation makes me think of him being alive. Because up to now, I don't think Bofum is dead. I think Bofum he's just transitioned to another place, but he is very much alive. So we believe that it's our duty to continue his work, because his ultimate goal was to make the world a better place. And that's what we're doing through the foundation.
What a beautiful legacy. As we wrap up this portion of the program, I just want to say that a lot of people, Mrs. John said, this case was not about race. I beg to differ. This case was all about race. And if you do have an opportunity, I know that the Justice League of Texas and Light of the World members, they read a lot. So they've already read a lot of the books that we've gone through. But if you haven't read Chokehold, Policing Black Men by Paul Butler, it gives a lot of ideas on and solutions on what needs to happen in policing. And I would say if Botham had been given a few more seconds, 5 more seconds, 7 more seconds, we would all be listening to him sing this evening. So the Dallas Police website says all those officers want to be treated with dignity and that they would treat citizens with the same dignity. And that's all we want from the 3,600 plus Dallas officers who police this city. Thank you all for coming. Let's show Allison Jean a lot of love and thank her for being with us this evening. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, you may be seated. We're gonna have a few announcements, and we're gonna give Sammy Berry an opportunity, one of Botham's leaders. It was his minister, one of his elders. We have another one of his elders here, and happy to see both of you here. And his Botham's one of his attorneys just showed up, and good to see you, my friend. Come on, let's give him a thunderous round of applause. And we talked about policing tonight, and tonight we got two here, good ones here tonight. Let's give them a thunderous round of applause. We thank them. We're going to ask the music ministry to go ahead and come up. I don't want to talk too much. Can we give Joyce King a thunderous round of applause for just, come on, let's give her for doing an amazing job. Amen. She's one of our own here at Light of the World, and she's a member of the Justice League of Texas, and she's my executive assistant at Southwestern Christian College, and we appreciate everything that she does, appreciate the research you do week in and week out, and just, in fact, I had a meeting with the mayor, and he mentioned one of your articles. And then I talked to somebody in the business community, Don Williams, and he said he had mentioned one of your articles, so you're being widely read and appreciated. So we thank God for you. We're gonna do that song that really encouraged the John family that I like. Which one is the one that I really like? And so Allison and Mr. John, Brother John, he'll leave here excited. I just want to make a couple of quick comments. Just offer some. I got passionate about social justice. I live behind a gated community in Lake Ridge, and some of you may know where I live. It's a very, very affluent neighborhood. And I think people like Fred Hammond and other people live out there, Danny Davis, others. Very nice community. And I was at church one Sunday, and my alarm went off. They called me and they said, you have an alarm going off. Would you like us to dispatch police? And I said, oh, no, I just think it's the wind. And so we didn't worry about it. A couple of minutes later, the alarm company called me back, and they said, your alarm had gone off. I said, well, go ahead and dispatch police. I left church in a suit and tie, like Martin King, like Medgar, and like Malcolm, well-dressed and well-behaved. Got to my house, showed the police officer my driver's license. He said, I don't think this is your house. I said, well, I have the key to the door. Opened the door, and I said, and not only do I have the key, I have the alarm, the code to the alarm. And he said, can you show me where you paid your mortgage? And I said, officer, I don't have one. And I said, please leave my home. He put his hand on his gun and stepped toward me. And I took a step back. I said, officer, you're not killing anyone today. I said, look up, you are being recorded. And I say, this is your last day being an officer. So I tell that story to say this. You can be in your home doing nothing. You can be a worship leader in the church, a young man who's doing great things out of St. Lucia, went on to do collegiate work in Arkansas, back in Dallas working for a major firm, salt of the earth, light of the world, brilliant, charismatic, engaging, and you can be doing nothing. But W.B. Du Bois says we have what we call a skin tax that all of us have to pay. And sometimes we tell our young men, stop sagging and all of that. But you can be well-dressed and well-behaved. And driving the Tyrrell is the most dangerous thing that I do every day in my life, because I'm almost stopped twice a week driving to Terrell, Texas to go to work at Southwestern Christian College. And whether I have a suit on or not, whether in my license or not, and I was smart enough to do this, I put the car, I registered the car in the church's name so that when someone would stop me, it would say Light of the World Church of Christ. And still, they walk up to the car like this. So I stick my hands out of the window each time, and they'll say, are you okay? And I say, that's not the issue. The issue is whether or not you're okay. And so we have a good laugh after that, because I know that police officers have a very, very dangerous job. And we don't want to demonize them. We don't want to marginalize them. And we don't want to castigate them in any kind of way. But it is nothing wrong with us holding people accountable that do things that are untoward and disrespectful. And if we don't have the moral courage to stand together and say no, this is going to continue to happen. There has to be accountability. John recommended a book, When Police Kill. It's written by Zimling. And chapter 11 talks about that you get what happens in police communities is how the chief, what's the message of the chief of police to officers, and that determines to a great extent how they handle the public. And so I think we have a good chief. I believe we do. I've heard good things about her. And we need to continue to partner with her and hold her and others accountable for how they police and make sure that the police is even. On the race reconciliation piece, let me just say this, and I don't know if there are any white people in here today, but this is what I say to my white brothers and sisters. And I can say this, and a lot of people don't know this, some of you do. My grandmother was white, so my maternal grandmother was white. And I get my wisdom from her on white people. And she taught me this. White people, it is not enough for us to have conversations about race and we leave there tolerating each other. So our level of tolerance goes up. It has to be acceptance. If you don't accept me as a human being, as moral, and as human, there's still going to be tension, because making progress is not me behaving more like you, but accepting me because I was created in the image of God, Imago Dei. So and then when you said, Allison said, talking about training and all of that, we need to vet. There's in the Bible, 1 Timothy 3, when it says that elders ought to be able to teach, right? That's in the text. But in the text where it says able to teach means not only do they have the ability to communicate and articulate and disseminate ideas and truth, but they are educable. So anybody who's in authority, preachers, police officers, or anyone in positions of authority, must not just have the ability to teach, but to be taught. And so some of these people don't have perhaps the mental or moral capacity to be taught that other people are human beings. And so we need to do a better job of vetting people even before they get into the academy, because that's where a lot of people that have these prejudices go and hide, so that they have the power of the state to kill and terrorize other people. And I don't care what color they are, whether they white, black, or brown, you don't have a right to terrorize. The policing needs to be even. But I believe that we made a tremendous step on tonight. I'll continue to work with Mothers Against Police Brutality. I'm going to support the foundation. I just want to let you guys know I will be supporting the foundation. I would love to stand in solidarity with other groups, Sammy and Jonathan and others in this community. I want those of us, John, those of us who work in this area, we need to remember that we can't do anything in a silo. We have to create partnerships because this issue is too large for just one or two groups to try to make something change. And that's why I begged, I didn't have to beg, but I insisted on Brother Barry and Brother Morrison being here because I wanted people to see that we stand in solidarity with this precious family and that there is no competition among friends and brothers and sisters in Christ, that we are going to stand not just for the John family, but any family. And what Paul said, in the body, out of the body, I know not. But we will stand in solidarity with people who are trying to do the right thing. And then finally, before they sing, Tertullian said this. He said that the blood of the martyr is the seed for the church. And Botham's blood will be the seed that will germinate and bring forth great change in our society, in our world. And I thank God for the Botham family. One more time for the Botham John family. Amen. Hallelujah. Did Lee leave? Did he leave? He just made a cameo? Oh, it wasn't a cameo. You wanted to make sure it wasn't a cameo. All right. So let's do this so that we can end on a high. Brother Barry, do you have announcements? No announcements, or you just going to lead us in the closing prayer? Okay, then. What we'd like to do then, is it possible, I don't know if we could do this, can we just join hands right here? And those of you who are healthy, grab the hands of those people up there, and we're going to join hands, and we're going to sing this final song. We want to sing this when our circle of unity and love, and we'll turn the program over to the hands of Brother Sammy Berry.
I want to say thank you to Dr. Seamster for having us out tonight. We really appreciate the opportunity to be here and share with the John family. And the Light of the World Chorus doing a magnificent job singing.
In a little tent, whoa, just like the river I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. It's been too 'cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh yes, it will.